My father froze at the airport when a man in a navy suit handed him a thick envelope with my name printed across it. Derek, my brother, stood beside him, pale, pretending it wasn't happening. 4 days earlier, they'd laughed while I walked out of my mother's dining room after my brother said, "You're not part of the family. Don't show up." I didn't shout. I just left. And now here we were, their world unraveling exactly the way they designed mine to. Before I tell you what really happened that night, hit like and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. Have you ever drawn a line with family and refused to erase it? I remember that Sunday like it was supposed to mean something. My mother called it family dinner, the way she always did, as if the word alone could fix the cracks. I spent half the afternoon in my apartment kitchen layering lasagna, brushing garlic butter over bread, choosing a bottle of Merlot I couldn't really afford. It wasn't about the food. It was my peace offering, my proof that I still cared enough to show up. Their house smelled like cinnamon candles and old photographs, too sweet, too staged. The laughter I heard from the doorway died the second I walked in. My father looked up from his phone, nodded once. My mother smiled the way she smiled at polite neighbors. Derek had his arm thrown over the back of his chair, bragging about his new business deal. The one I'd quietly kept afloat 3 times already. I set my dishes down, the steam fogging the plastic table runner, and waited for someone to make room. No one did. Dinner unfolded like it always did, chaotic, loud, a performance with no audience for me. They talked about the upcoming family reunion in spring, tossing dates and hotel names around as if I wasn't sitting right there. I listened, nodding where I was supposed to, heart pounding harder than it should have. I didn't want an invitation. I just wanted acknowledgement. When the conversation paused, I smiled and said as evenly as I could, "Just tell me when the reunion is. I'll book early this time." The words hung in the air for a second too long, then fell flat. My mother's fork scraped her plate. Derek didn't look up. My father cleared his throat and asked if anyone wanted more bread. That I should have been used to it by then, the way they erased me in plain sight. But something about that moment made the air feel thinner, sharper. Maybe it was the effort behind my calm voice, or the way my mother refused to meet my eyes. Maybe I was finally old enough to recognize cruelty when it wore manners. I poured myself a small glass of wine and sat back, watching the scene play out like I wasn't in it. The golden child in his audience, the mother keeping peace through silence, the father measuring control in tone. I told myself to breathe, to not ruin another Sunday. But a part of me already knew. Peace that depends on silence isn't peace. It's training for surrender. That was the last Sunday I tried to earn my place at their table. The pause after my question felt endless. And then Derek finally looked up. He leaned back in his chair, that smug half grin he always used when he wanted to land a punch without moving his hands. "You're not part of the family," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Don't show up." No one gasped. No one told him to stop. The room didn't explode. It caved in. My mother pressed her napkin to her lips, trying not to smile. My father slapped the table once, laughing like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all week. The noise filled the room, sharp and tinny, bouncing off the walls. The table erupted in laughter. I remember thinking how strange it was that a sound could hurt more than words. I stared at the lasagna I'd made, steam still rising, the cheese bubbling like it belonged to someone else. I could feel heat crawl up my neck, not from anger, but from the shame of realizing how easily they'd rehearsed this scene without me knowing. I didn't say a word. I set down my glass, folded my napkin, and pushed the chair back slowly enough to make them uncomfortable. Derek smirked. "Oh, come on, Jenny. Can't you take a joke?" I met his eyes for the first time that night. "You meant it," I said softly. He didn't deny it. None of them did. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair. My mother's voice trailed after me, thin, polite, useless. "Jenny, stay. It's just dinner." "No," I said, sliding my arms into my sleeves. "It's a message." I got it. The air outside was freezing, the kind that stings your eyes. Behind me, the laughter started again, muffled through the door as if they couldn't bear even a minute of quiet. I stood on the porch for a long second, breathing in cold air until my chest stopped shaking. Then I walked to my car, lasagna untouched, still steaming in my hands. There's a kind of silence that doesn't beg for explanation. It announces its own ending. I didn't slam the door or cry on the way home. I just drove through the dark suburbs, headlights slicing through fog, thinking one clear thought that repeated like a heartbeat. This is the last time I tried to belong somewhere that laughs when I bleed. The next morning I woke to sunlight cutting through my blinds, the kind that makes dust look like snow. My phone lay face down on the counter. No calls, no messages, no apology. The silence was louder than anything they could have said. I made coffee, sat by the window, and tried to convince myself that peace felt like this, empty but calm. But peace isn't quiet when it's built on avoidance. It's just waiting for the next wound. By the second day, the calm turned brittle. I checked my phone once, then twice. Nothing. They hadn't even noticed I was gone. Or maybe they had. And that was the point. On the fourth day my phone finally buzzed. I stared at the screen before opening the message. Derek. Hey. Weird question. Did your bank block the transfer? The loan payment didn't go through. No greeting. No sorry. Just business straight to the wallet. I read it twice. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, then typed 4 words that felt like they'd been waiting years to exist. Me, not family, not funded. Then I blocked his number. An hour later, another text appeared. This time from my father. I didn't open it. I just flipped the phone over and let it buzz against the table until it stopped. The only sound left was the low hum of the refrigerator, steady and uncaring. That night, I sat on the floor surrounded by old bank statements, receipts, transfer records, years of emergencies that always had Derek's name attached. The amounts blurred together, 200 here, 500 there, 1,000. When his business almost failed, my stomach turned. The pattern was clear. My generosity had become their safety net. And their weapon. I pulled a yellow highlighter across each transaction, watching the paper glow under the lamp. Every mark was a bruised proof of how long I'd been funding their comfort at the expense of my sanity. When I was done, I stacked the papers neatly and whispered to no one, "That's over now." Outside, rain started to fall against the glass. For once, it didn't sound lonely. By evening, I heard the first knock on my door. Then another, harder this time. I didn't move. Through the peephole, I saw the shape of my father's shoulders. Derek's temper pacing beside him. Their rhythm matched, the pounding steady, entitled, demanding. I wrapped both hands around a cup of tea and stood in the center of my apartment, heart steady. They pounded until my picture frames rattled. I didn't answer. I just listened until the sound faded, replaced by the hum of their SUV pulling away. That's when I understood. Silence is a mirror. It shows people exactly who they are when they can't use you anymore. When the night finally settled, I looked at the stack of highlighted papers on my table and smiled. Not the happy kind, but the kind that knows something irreversible has begun. For days ago, I left their house with nothing. Tonight I had something better. Boundaries that couldn't be refunded. 3 days later, the envelope showed up at my door. Plain white, my name scrawled in my father's careful handwriting. Inside, $400 in 20s. No note, just cash, a guilt payment, a hush fee.